My wife cheated on me with her boss, then stole $250, $0 from our joint account to fund her lavish new life. Now she's suing me for half the property after claiming I manipulated her into signing away everything during our ugly divorce. I never thought I'd end up in a situation like this. Honestly, I thought I knew my wife, Jessica, inside and out. We'd been together for 8 years, married for 5, and I always believed we had a solid life. Good jobs, a nice house, 2 dogs. But then everything started to unravel, and it all happened so fast I barely had time to process it. It started with small things, her being more secretive with her phone, dismissing my questions about her whereabouts, claiming she was just busy at work. At first I thought she was stressed, maybe over her job as a marketing executive, but the signs kept piling up. She'd go out with colleagues more often, and her phone was always locked, even when she was in the bathroom. That should have been a red flag, but I was blinded by love or maybe by comfort. Then came the night I found her texting someone late at night. I'd been working late myself, but I noticed her phone light up in her purse. Curiosity got the better of me and I peeked. The messages weren't innocent, flirty, suggestive, talking about meeting up after hours and even explicit sex talk. My stomach dropped. I knew it was with her boss, Robert. I'd seen her mention his name a few times, but I dismissed it as just work talk. Now I wasn't so sure. I decided to dig deeper. I installed a tracking app on her phone, something I hated to do, but I felt I had no choice. Over the next few days, I tracked her movements. That's when I saw her going to a hotel downtown, not far from her office. She stayed there for hours, and I caught her going in and out with a man I now knew was Robert. The pieces clicked into place. It wasn't just an affair. It was an affair that had been going on for months, judging by the messages and the secret meetings. I was furious, but mostly I felt betrayed. I thought I knew Jessica. She always acted like she loved me, like I was her world, but behind my back she was screwing her boss and lying to my face. The worst part was the way she lied when I confronted her. I brought her home from work one day, acting normal, and then just blurted out what I'd seen. Her face went pale and she instantly started denying everything. "You're crazy," she said. "You're paranoid. Robert is just a friend. You're reading too much into it." I lost my temper. I told her I had proof, screenshots, hotel receipts, everything. She scoffed, called me controlling, and accused me of invading her privacy. She said I was manipulative, that I made her feel guilty for working late or going out with friends. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she pretend all those months that everything was fine when she was sneaking around with her boss? The emotional blow hit me hard. I felt sick, like I'd been punched in the gut. I loved her, or at least I thought I did, and now I was looking at this stranger, someone who had been cheating on me, stealing my trust and betraying everything we built together. I was angry. Yes, but also heartbroken. How did I miss all the signs? Why did I trust her so blindly? That night I stayed up late, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd just learned. I kept asking myself how I'd let it get this far. How could I have been so blind? And what now? Do I confront her again? Do I kick her out? Do I just pack my bags and leave? I didn't have the answers then, but deep down I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. This wasn't just a fling. This was a full-blown betrayal, and I had to decide what to do about it. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was racing, replaying everything I'd uncovered the night before. I knew I had to confront her again, but I also realized I couldn't just do it impulsively. I needed a plan, something that would give me clarity and, honestly, some leverage. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was hurt, humiliated, and pissed off beyond belief. I decided to go through our bank accounts. I needed to see if there was any evidence of her money moves, especially since I suspected she might have been planning more than just an affair. I logged into our joint account first. It wasn't long before I noticed a series of transactions that made my blood boil. Over the past 3 months, Jessica had withdrawn about $250, $0, almost everything we had saved together. I stared at the screen, feeling like I'd been punched again. How could she do this? How could she steal that much money from us, from everything we built? The withdrawals were mostly cash, taken out in large sums from ATMs around the city. I called the bank immediately, demanding to know where the money had gone. The bank told me she had been withdrawing it in increments, claiming it was for personal expenses and business opportunities. I knew she was lying. She'd been planning this, I was sure of it. She wanted out and she wanted a new life, one that I wasn't part of. That's when I started digging into her credit card statements. I found charges at luxury stores, designer boutiques, and even overseas trips booked under her name. She was spending like crazy, lavish dinners, spa days, jewelry. It was clear she was trying to set herself up for this new life funded by my money. I felt sick. All those years of hard work and she was just taking it all to fund her betrayal. I kept thinking about how to turn this around. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with concrete evidence. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to be a pushover, that I knew everything. But I also knew I couldn't let her see me as weak. I had to be smart, calculated. So I spent the next few hours gathering all the proof I could, screenshots of her messages, receipts, bank statements. I printed everything out and prepared myself for the inevitable showdown. That afternoon, I called her at work. I told her I needed to talk, that I had some things to discuss. She sounded annoyed but agreed to come home early. When she arrived, I was waiting in the living room with all the evidence spread out on the coffee table. Her eyes widened instantly when she saw the bank statements, the receipts, the texts I'd saved. Her face went pale and she tried to brush it off. "You're overreacting," she spat. "You're just jealous because I'm successful and you're insecure." She started to lie, saying the money was for a new business idea, that she'd been planning to tell me everything but didn't want to hurt me. I didn't buy it. I told her I knew she'd been with Robert, that I had proof of their affair, and that I knew about the money she'd stolen. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, claiming I was crazy, that I was controlling, that I'd manipulated her into signing away everything in the divorce. She said she was just trying to better herself, that she deserved more than what I was giving her. I couldn't believe her audacity. She was lying through her teeth, trying to spin it so I looked like the bad guy, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I was done being the fool. That confrontation changed everything. I felt a mix of rage and sadness, but mostly I felt betrayed. I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I was furious that she'd stolen from me, lied to my face, and then had the nerve to accuse me of manipulation. I knew I had to get out of this mess, but I also knew I wanted revenge. Not just to punish her, but to make her pay for what she'd done. As I sat there, watching her try to manipulate her way out of it, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my money, my trust, or my life. I would find a way to make her regret this, to make her understand that actions have consequences. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew I had to plan carefully. Because if she thought she could cheat, steal, and lie her way out of this, she was dead wrong. After that confrontation, I spent the next few days in a fog. I was furious, hurt, and honestly feeling pretty lost. Jessica kept trying to spin her stories, claiming she was doing all this for us, that she was trying to secure our future with her lavish spending. She had the nerve to say I manipulated her into signing away everything during the divorce, like I was some sort of puppet master pulling her strings. That was the last straw. I didn't buy her lies for a second. I knew she'd been planning this for months. The affair with Robert, the theft, the spending spree, all of it was her way of escaping her life with me and starting fresh on her terms. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting. I'd given her everything, my love, my money, my time, and she'd thrown it all away for some guy at her office. The betrayal cut deep, but I wasn't just going to sit around and feel sorry for myself. I decided I had to take action. I needed to protect what was left of my life, my property, my money, my dignity. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer. I wanted to get legal advice about the stolen money and the property division. I also started researching what her rights were, what I could do to prevent her from taking more than she already had. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her financials. I wanted to see if she'd hidden anything else, if there was more she was planning to take. I hired a private investigator to look into her recent activities, her bank accounts, and her whereabouts. I knew she was planning to move away, maybe even try to claim half the property, claiming I manipulated her into signing divorce papers she didn't understand. That was her usual game, lying, twisting facts, playing the victim. One night she called me, crying again, trying to apologize or maybe just get me to feel guilty. She said she still loved me, that she'd made mistakes but wanted to fix everything. I told her she'd already broken everything that mattered. I didn't want her apologies. I wanted her to face the consequences of what she'd done. I told her I'd be fighting for my rights and that I wouldn't let her walk away with a dime more than what was fair. That's when I started planning my next move. I reached out to a forensic accountant to trace her spending, to see if she'd transferred money into offshore accounts or hidden assets. I wanted to be prepared for any legal battle. I also contacted a divorce attorney who specialized in high net worth cases. I knew she'd try to claim half the property, but I was determined to fight her for every penny, especially after what she'd stolen from us. Jessica, of course, insisted she was the victim, that I'd manipulated her into signing the divorce papers, that I'd made her feel guilty for wanting a better life. She played the victim card hard, but I saw through her. I knew her game now. She was trying to spin it so she'd come out on top, claiming I was the bad guy. But I had the proof, the bank statements, the receipts, the messages. I wasn't going down without a fight. This whole thing was turning into a nightmare. I'd been betrayed, and now I was fighting for everything I'd worked for. My mind kept circling back to one thing. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? And the worst part was, I knew I was just getting started. The legal battle, the financial war, it was going to be long, messy, and brutal. But I was ready. I was done being the victim. Jessica had made her choice, and now I was going to make sure she paid for it. Over the next couple of weeks, I threw myself into gathering evidence and building my case. The more I dug, the angrier I got. Jessica was not just a cheater, she was a thief, a manipulator, and a liar. I found bank transfers to accounts I had no idea about, large cash deposits she'd hidden, and even fake invoices for supposed business expenses that she'd used to justify her spending sprees. It was clear she'd gone all out to cover her tracks, but I was determined to find every loophole she'd left open. I also started thinking about her potential moves. I knew she'd try to claim she was entitled to half the property, our house, investments, everything. She'd try to spin it as if I'd manipulated her into signing divorce papers she didn't understand, but I had the signed documents, the witnesses, and the proof of her affair. I made sure my lawyer was ready for a tough fight. One night, I got a call from the private investigator. He had tracked Jessica to a luxury hotel downtown where she was meeting Robert. I listened in, furious. She was planning to run, to disappear with the money and start her new life somewhere else. That was the moment I realized I had to act fast. I couldn't let her run away with everything. She'd already stolen enough, and I wasn't going to let her take my future too. I contacted my lawyer again. We filed a temporary restraining order to freeze her assets and prevent her from leaving the state. We also filed for an emergency hearing to stop her from transferring any more money or property. Jessica's lawyer tried to fight it, claiming I was just trying to control her, but the evidence was overwhelming. I had proof of the affair, the theft, and her attempts to hide her assets. Meanwhile, Jessica was still trying to spin her story. She claimed she was doing all this for us, that she'd sacrificed everything for her career and her new life. She accused me of being controlling and manipulative, just like she had during our marriage, but I knew better. I saw through her lies now. She was just trying to save herself, to justify her cheating and theft. The courtroom hearing was intense. Jessica sat there trying to look innocent, but her eyes kept darting around. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and disgust. The judge granted the temporary restraining order, and I felt a small sense of victory. But I knew the fight was far from over. Jessica would do everything she could to get what she wanted, her revenge, her new life, and her money. That night I sat alone in my empty house, feeling hollow but also strangely relieved. I had a plan now. I was going to fight her in court, push back against her lies, and make sure she paid for what she'd done. I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. She was a different person than the woman I married. The betrayal had changed everything. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without a fight. Not without making her regret ever crossing me. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal battles, sleepless nights, and constant tension. Jessica was relentless, trying every trick to turn the situation in her favor. She hired her own lawyer, and I could tell she was trying to spin the story that I was an abusive, controlling husband who manipulated her into signing everything away. Her new narrative was that she'd only cheated out of desperation and that her theft was some misguided attempt to find herself. But I had the evidence, and I made sure everyone knew it. Every bank statement, every message, every receipt pointed back to her. I even uncovered that she'd been transferring money into offshore accounts, money she'd hidden from me for months. It was like peeling back layers of a lie, and I was determined to expose every one of them. One day, I sat in the courtroom, staring across at her. Jessica's face was a mask of innocence, but her eyes betrayed her. She was trying to act like the victim, claiming I manipulated her into signing papers she didn't understand. Her lawyer argued that I'd coerced her into giving up everything, that she was just trying to start fresh after a difficult marriage. They painted me as a villain, a control freak who'd ruined her life, but I had the proof. The signed divorce papers, the bank records, the chat logs, everything. I presented it all to the judge. When I finished, Jessica's lawyer looked like she'd swallowed her tongue. The judge listened carefully, then ruled in my favor. She ordered Jessica to return the stolen money, freeze her assets, and pay damages for the theft. The court also placed restrictions on her ability to claim half the property, citing her fraudulent behavior. That victory felt like a small win, but I knew it was only part of the battle. Jessica was furious, but she couldn't deny the facts anymore. She threw a tantrum, screaming about how unfair everything was, how I'd ruined her life. But the judge wasn't swayed. Justice was starting to feel like it was on my side for once. In the aftermath, I took a hard look at what I'd learned. Trust is fragile, and betrayal can come from the people you least expect. Jessica's greed and lies had nearly destroyed everything: my marriage, my savings, my sense of security. But I also realized I was stronger than I thought. I'd fought back, I'd uncovered the truth, and I'd protected what was mine. Now I'm rebuilding. It's not easy, and I still feel the sting of betrayal every day. But I know I'll come out of this better, more cautious, more aware of who I can trust. I wish I could say I've forgiven her, but honestly, I don't think I ever will. Some wounds run too deep. For anyone out there going through something similar, my advice is this: don't ignore the signs, trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Because in the end, justice matters more than any amount of money or false hope. Looking back now, I realize how much this ordeal changed me. I used to think trust was the foundation of any relationship, but I've come to see it as something you earn, something fragile that can shatter with one breach. Jessica's betrayal was a wake-up call, one I won't forget. It's strange how life can turn upside down in a matter of weeks, how someone you loved and trusted can become a stranger in the blink of an eye. I've learned that revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about reclaiming your dignity, protecting what's yours, and making sure the people who hurt you pay for their lies. It's about standing your ground, even when everything seems to be falling apart. Jessica thought she could take everything from me: my money, my trust, my future, and walk away smiling. But I made sure she didn't get away with it. I fought with everything I had, and I won. Now I'm slowly rebuilding my life. It's not perfect, and I still have scars, but I'm stronger for having gone through it. I've learned to be more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of my own strength. I've come to understand that sometimes you have to take control, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it hurts, because no one else is coming to save you. To anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, just know you're not alone. It's okay to feel broken, angry, or lost, but don't let those feelings defeat you. Stand up, fight for yourself, and never settle for less than the truth. Because at the end of the day, the only person who truly has your back is you. And trust me, you're stronger than you think.